So I want to tell you guys, I'm going to get all geeky on you. What we're going to talk about tonight, we're going to talk a bit about Shakespeare. Hey, I don't know Shakespeare. We're going to talk about some Shakespeare. We're going to talk about Favour. And actually, but I'd quite like to do a challenging message if that was okay. So basically, there could be some controversial stuff. There could be some awesome stuff. There's probably going to have to be some stuff that you sift through and you decide this is good, this is not, this is for me, this isn't. All right? So that was my disclaimer. And now I'm going to pray a disclaimer. God, thank you so much. Lord, would you breathe upon this message tonight? God, let it glorify you. If it's awesome, it's you. If it's not, I'm so sorry I got in the way. Amen. That's a prayer. Let's rock and roll. All right, let's get all Shakespeare up in this. Before we get all Shakespeare, what we need to do is I need to tell you, back in the day, everyone say back in the day. Back in the days of knights and damsels and all of that stuff, does anyone have a hanky? I'd settle for a dirty one. You spat on it. Tissue would be vaguely okay. Okay, so way back in the day, what used to happen is rather than, one of the things that was really popular was this thing called Chivalric Love. All right, so this is back in medieval times, but in Chivalric Love, what would happen is that the knight or the person who was the object of the affection, the person who was the giver of love, was never allowed to show the person who was the receiver of love that they loved them. Because as soon as it became like all wow, it was no longer okay. Okay, it was a pure type of love. But what would happen is that as the knights, so knights used to go to battle, okay, and when the knights went to battle, what would happen is you'd have the damsels. You see it in Lord of the Rings. It happens a couple of times in there actually. What used to happen is that a damsel would go up to her knight. It would normally give her a piece of cloth. In this case, a piece of Kleenex, which is almost as good. And she'd give it to him, and that would show that he had her favour. Okay, and the tissue or whatever it was, it could be a pin, it could be a piece of jewellery, it could be family weapon, I don't know, have my mace and my axe. You'd hand that over, and you would have that person's favour. Does that make sense? So knights used to fight over favours all the time. So like if you got the favour of a damsel that another knight was actually loving from afar, okay, which was the pure and only type of love that was okay at that time. Everything else was dirty. All right? So kissy love was bad. You would actually fight over it to the point of death. Like it was one of the things that they used to fight over. Okay, fast forward. Shakespeare. This isn't even the start of my message. I'm sorry for that. Shakespeare, right? There's this one play called Othello. Who's ever studied Othello? Who's ever gone to see it? It's known as the jealousy play. So basically what happens is Othello's this really good dude apart from he gets jealous. Now the thing that actually breaks the back of it is that this dude named Iago, who's pretty evil, steals a handkerchief from Desdemona, who's Othello's wife, okay? And gives it to this good dude named Cassio. Now, as soon as Othello sees that Cassio has got Desdemona's handkerchief, he kills him. Which makes no sense. Apart from the fact that if you think of it from the knight's point of view, she'd just given her favour to another man. So he was jealous over another person's favour. It should be his. Okay, does that make sense? It's important later on. Some of you guys are already drawing the dots and going, oh wow, okay, whose favour have I been jealous of? Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. All right? So let's just think about that handkerchief for a minute. I'll just put my favour in my pocket. See, the thing is that sometimes I could give my favour to Josh, and then how much favour do I have left? Well, none. If I give him the whole hanky, this is my favour. Give it away. It's a finite resource. Josh, there you go. Oh, no, you don't get it anymore. All right, that's fine. Mel, you can grab that. You now have my favour. Oh, so we've got an Othello. That's awesome. All right. All right, we're going to talk about favour. Now, this is a specific type of favour. I actually wanted to talk about the favour of man. Okay, which is tied to the favour of God. But there's this really interesting passage, or, and anyone who knows, a bit of stuff. Oh, actually, do you want me to go Shakespeare one more step? Yeah, do you want me to go Shakespeare one more step? Okay. So in the wider context of the play, right, at that time, what would happen in the wider social context is that you would have someone do favours for you. Okay, so what you were after was someone that you could get patronage from. But there was actually two ways it could go. Your patron, the person who was looking after you, would give you stuff, and then one of two things would happen. They would either give you their patronage, which basically meant, hey, you know what, my resources are your resources, use whatever. That was one way. The other way was more the mafia-style way. I've now given you 3 favors, you belong to me. So it was this crazy thing where basically you'd either receive patronage or favor for a lifetime, or actually you'd become a slave. It's important. So this is where we're going. Now this is the Western thinking of favor. Believe it or not, you've been raised on this for 2,000 years. All right? This is Western favor. All right. Now, one more disclaimer. Listening to me preach is like watching a Quentin Tarantino movie. All right? It's often in a strange order. It's often inappropriate. There could be blood. But usually everyone gets something out of it, okay? So if you bear with it, wait for the whole thing, and then you'll go, aha. All right? That's what I'm praying for. Okay. Hey, I've got to tell you, 2013, I believe, is a year of favor for us. See, it's not only a year of favour, of godly favour. I believe it's going to be a year where we walk in the favour of men. We're going to see favour within the secular realm. Okay, so not only in the spiritual realm, which is something that I believe that we have. Like anyone that hangs around at church for a while, church is a pretty cool place to hang out. Doesn't matter, But actually, I believe in the secular realm, we're going to start to see favour in that area. And with that in mind, right at the start of Luke, right, you've got Jesus. Okay. Funnily enough, yeah. He's kind of a big deal in Luke. You've got Jesus. And actually what used to happen is that Jesus' parents, Mary and Joseph, used to go to the temple every single year. They'd go to the temple in Galilee. Anyway, they go to the temple, a temple. So one year Jesus gets ID'd by 2 prophets that just kind of happened to hang out there, Anna and Simeon. Simeon, it's who you're named after, just by the way. He was a good guy, is Simeon. And anyway, there's these 2 passages. So you've got to understand he gets ID'd. Then there's this first verse that says, it's in Luke chapter 2, verse 40. It says, and the NIV version says, and the child grew and became strong. He was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was upon him. That's lovely. That's awesome. The New Living Translation says, there the child grew up healthy and strong. He was filled with wisdom, and God's favor was upon him. That's pretty interesting because grace and favor are used in the same area. But the important thing is that where was Jesus? He was in the temple about his father's business. So after that passage where he gets ID'd as, oh wow, this is probably the Messiah. It's essentially what Simeon and Anna say. The child's coming. Oh my goodness, there he is. Would you look at that? After that, there's that passage where somehow, like how big a family do you have to have in order to not realize your son, your heir, was not with you on the way back home? Like it's like the shopping mall thing to the nth degree. Do you know what I mean? Oh, we lost the Messiah. That's a bit orkies. But actually, where do they find him? They find him in the temple. He was just hanging out there. And when they question him, he goes, well, where did you expect me to be? I was in my father's house about my father's business. And then after that, it's framed at the other end, Luke 2, verse 52. Then he went down to, actually, we'll start at 51. Then he went down to Nazareth, this is Jesus, with them, and was obedient to them. So that's after he gets found out in the temple. So after he gets found out in the temple, what do you think happened at that point? If your kid has purposely left themselves and hid themselves at the warehouse, just so they can stay there longer, they're hanging out in the toy section, or homewares if you're my wife, and they're hanging out there, and he says, well, where else do you think I'd be? What happened after that? What would Mary do? WWYD, what would you do? Like in my head, it goes something like, what the? Followed by some corporal punishment. And then put on a Batman mask, so it was Batman that did it. And then go home and probably some more yelling and stuff like that. And then you'd be grounded for 10 years. Charlie's got something really heaps to look forward to. That sounds awesome, doesn't it? But actually, check it out. Luke chapter 2, verse 51. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. So it's cool. So he wasn't actually doing anything wrong if he was in his father's house about his father's business. He was doing his thing. But he was actually still obedient to his parents. And then it says, but his mother treasured all these things in her heart. Oh my goodness, what are you doing? But he treasured it in his heart. She treasured it in her heart. It's cool. Have you ever, like any parent can understand this, where you simultaneously recognize that the kid should be in trouble, but it's also going to be a story that you're going to tell for the next 20 years. So it's like you tell them off, you discipline them, and then afterwards it's like, that was awesome. That is a little squeaky. All right. So check it out. So there's these two, and Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and favor with God and men. So it's really interesting that Jesus was the perfect man. So he started off perfect, right? As well as God. And when it says, and the grace of God, and the favor of God was there, the Greek word there is charis or charatu. Okay? Charis or charatu. It's actually the same root word we get charity from. Okay? It not only means grace in one sense of the word, it also means favor in another sense of the word. And I looked it up, and there's Clark's commentary, he was one dude that he loved theology. He by himself wrote more on the Bible, like he wrote half as much as the biggest book that was ever written on the Bible, and he wrote half by himself when the other guys wrote twice as much, and there was a massive big council of them. So, but what he says is that even Christ himself, who knew no sin, grew in the favor of God. That's pretty interesting, eh? Because for us, a lot of the time, we actually, when we say grace and when we say favor, we'll often use it as a synonym. We'll use it pretty much as the exact same word, the exact same function. When actually, the point that he made was that if man was as pure and perfect as the man Jesus Christ himself was, and yet he can still increase in the image and consequently the favor of God, then we can probably do that too. So there's two things going on here. There's a grace zone, and then there's a point where grace finishes, and then there's a favor zone. And grace is enough for some stuff, but actually there's more favor that you can walk into as well. Okay? So there's a difference between grace and favor. If you look up the word grace, it means unmerited favor. So what does that make favor? Merited favor. Which is a really bad definition. You never use the same word as what you're actually trying to describe. It's just a bad definition. But if grace is unmerited favor, then favor is the stuff that you receive as a result of something which is earned or deserved. Now, any Pentecostals in the room right now are walking in the grace zone and nothing but the grace zone? would have a real problem with what I just said. And that's okay. It's a challenging message. You can use whatever you want with it, okay? But there's a difference between grace and favour. The Strong's Concordance actually differentiates the two. And the Strong's Concordance says it can be earned or it can be deserved. So that's pretty cool. So 2 keys for Jesus' increase in favour. It was interesting that he hung out in the temple. So he hung out in the area that he wanted to increase his favour in. There's something to be said for being there. If you want to have favour in your school, you need to be there. You need to inhabit the space. The second thing that's really interesting is that he obeyed his parents. Even though, it would be really interesting to see in the wider picture, was he right or was he wrong to obey his parents there? It'd be interesting to know, was he right to obey his parents? Yes. Was he wrong to leave with them? I don't know. Depends on who his dad is. Who's his dad then? Is it his earthly father or is it his heavenly father? But regardless, after this incident, he still increased in favour with God and with man. And it definitely included his parents, because his parents were like, oh, I'm going to treasure that in my heart. See, favour is additional to grace. It's a as well as, or a plus. See, I've got here, sometimes we live a dual lifestyle thinking we are walking in grace with a wink and a nod to God in regards to our sin when there's so much more available to us. God's grace is enough, but it's not all we have access to. So Jesus gained favour amongst God and men. I don't know how far I'll get in this. I'll probably have to stop at some stage, but that's okay. I can do something else another time. I think, we can do more than one message on favour. It's okay. It's quite important to God. So, see, the thing we have to understand is that if you have an increase in favour with, God shows an increase in favour with an increase in function. Does that make sense? Man shows an increase in favour with an increase in position. All right, so I'll give you an example, and I'll give you a real example after the example. So man equates favour with position. If you are made a pastor, you've been shown favour in the area of pastoring, according to man. God equates favour with function. So an increase in favour would result in a greater influence to be able to pastor those around you. Okay? So if you chase after position, you can do it at the cost of function. If your desire is to pastor people, but you desire the title of pastor, there's a whole lot of stuff you can do to become a pastor that doesn't actually include pastoring people. Like, I could become a pastor by greasing the right wheels. Now, knowing Pastor Ian and Pastor Garth, they'd just laugh and go, pfft. If you chase after position, you lose function, pleasing those above you rather than serving those around you. If you chase after function, the position no longer matters. See, because the thing is serving those around you will please those above you. So I'll give you a great example. So Shan's been working really hard out. Shan's just taken a job at the SIT, all right? So her desire is to serve the young adults of Invercargill and Southland. That's her desire, it's her passion. You talk to her for longer than 2 seconds, that's what she talks about. All right? That's it. So a result of that, so we've been serving in an SIT for probably, almost 10 years now. Oh my gosh. Almost 10 years now. Okay, and in the last couple of years we've been doing it using this thing called Red Frogs. Now the thing is that God placed favour on that, but it was recognised by man as well. So she received a position, which was that she received the job of the person who used to ring us up and go, hey, can we get you in to help us out? Now that's a position that's not the same as what her heart is, which is to be, she wants to pastor young adults. But actually in the wider scheme of things, God's blessed that because as a result of man giving her favour, she now has a greater ability to pastor those that she always wanted to pastor anyway. So while the title or the position's not exactly right, the function's perfect. Okay? John 5 verse 44, it's 41 to 44 because it's the Message. It says, I'm not interested in crowd approval. And do you know why? Because I know you and your crowds. I know that love, especially God's love, is not on your working agenda. I came with the authority of my Father. This is Jesus. I came with the authority of my Father, and you either dismiss me or avoid me. If another came acting self-important, you would welcome him with open arms. How do you expect to get anywhere with God when you spend all your time jockeying for position with each other, ranking your rivals, and ignoring God? Motivation's important, hey. Why we do what we do is important. Not just what we do, not just ticking the box, but why we do what we do is important. See, our motivation is important. Showing love needs to be on the agenda because it was one of the most important things to God. But it's interesting that Jesus said that it came with the authority of the Father, but also came with humility. He still had the authority of his Father. He mentioned his Father when he was talking about it. But actually he came with humility as well. He wasn't acting self-important. Okay, so how do we show God's favor on people? Because if we are ministers of God's favor, if we carry it, we get to release it. Hey. Do we have God's favor? Maybe. Can we release it if we have it? Definitely. So, I've got a couple of wee things here. If you have the favor of men but lose the favor of God, then you've got nothing. Okay? Warren Buffett, unbelievable guy. The way that he got his money was very interesting. So, if he ever brings out a thing, it'll be interesting. Bill Gates, another one, very interesting. The first half of his life is not necessarily very philanthropic. In fact, he very clearly stood on a couple of people on the way. Thomas Edison, same thing. Okay? They gain the favor of men, but actually at the end of the day, what's going to happen? On the other hand, if you have the favor of God and lose the favor of men, then you have everything. All right, so here we go. I'm going to be 10 minutes. Do you believe me? It's awesome because I said it was going to be 10 minutes ago. So you just gave me another 10 minutes. Thanks for that. Okay. So here's a point. I've got a point here. Generosity releases flavor. Flavor. Yo, what up? Gangster. It's always funny when a white guy says gangster because every day, gangster. No, anyway, it's fine. Generosity releases favor. What's generosity? Generosity is exhibiting the generous nature of God. See, a natural response of releasing the favor of God is you will gain the favor of men. It's a natural response, but here's the key. It has to be without strings. Has to be without strings. So now you're giving something away with no agenda, which is a really hard thing to do. I don't know if you've noticed that or not. That's like me giving my hanky away without ever thinking I could get a hanky back. Suddenly I've got no favor because I gave it all away. See, it's not trading favors. How do you know if you're trading favors? If someone does something for you and they finish with, you owe me, it's not without strings. There's some guys that I know that will just give and give and give and give, and you could never give them stuff back. They just go, yep, no, do you know what, just whatever. Integrity breeds favor. Our motive needs to be pure without guile. Favor opens doors. Integrity and character allow us to inhabit the space once we've walked through the door. Commitment to one's goals bring favour to that person. Commitment develops integrity within a person. When a man learns to serve from his heart, it shows in his deeds. His deeds excel amongst those of other men. Doing to receive brings failure. Doing to give brings favour. So your desire to do God's will without desiring anything back in return shows you to be of God's house and about God's business. There's this really interesting verse in Proverbs. Proverbs 12:2, it's the NIV. It says, a good man obtains favour from the Lord, but the Lord condemns a crafty man. Why crafty? I can be crafty. I can be very crafty like a fox. In fact, in order to do some of the jobs that I do, I have to be crafty like a fox. Let's do camps together. Ha-ha! All the youth are laughing. The young adults are going, oh. Okay, that's fine. Proverbs 22, verse 1-3 says, a good name is to be chosen rather than great riches, loving favour rather than silver or gold. See, i.e., we can't be in it for the gold or the glory. We're in it to give, not to get. So I'll give you a great example. Do you know you can sow favour? Do you know you can do that? So I'll use a couple of frogs examples just because they're probably the most recent ones. Okay. I don't know if I've told you this story or not, but there was the guy who started Red Frogs was a guy called Andy Goulet. I've told you that story. Did you know he took us out for lunch? Did I tell you? Have I told church this story? I told you the story that he took us out for lunch? Okay, maybe I'll tell that story. So Andy's probably one of the more generous guys I know. What happens is he took us to this place on the Gold Coast called the Marriott. Like the Marriott is so flash that there's no schoolies on it because they don't need it because they charge so much for the hotel regardless. Okay, the swimming pool is literally a beach, as in they built a beach. Okay, so sand, fishies, everything. They built a beach. We went in and he said, just take whatever you want from the salad bar and stuff. We had a look at the salad bar. It's the only salad bar I've ever seen that had like a whole side of salmon as part of the salad. And so we looked at it going, wow, this is an amazing lunch. We filled up on the salad bar like it was like, we filled up on the salad bar. And we're eating the salad going, this is amazing. There's like meat. There's all kinds of stuff. There's stuff that we didn't know what it was, like, Japanese type stuff. And when he told us, it freaked me out. And like all of that stuff. Christy, you're going to love that. All right, what is this? I don't want to know. We finished this and went, man, that was a great lunch. He said, okay, we're going to bring lunch now. I was like, well, what are you talking about? He brings out 3 seafood towers. Now, when I say towers, I mean that one of these things would be the equivalent of like a sharing platter at, I don't know, Ziff's or whatever. And he brought out 3 of them. Had like crayfish, had like these things called Moreton Bay bugs, which is the most delicious seafood I've ever tasted in my life and comes from one part of Australia, which sucks. All right? It had everything on it. To the point that we ate two out of the 3 towers and then cried that we couldn't eat the 3rd tower. Like that was how good it was. And so what's he doing? He's sowing generosity. Like that's just the kind of guy he is. And so after that we have this dessert. And it wasn't an ice cream bar. It was a gelato bar. And so it was like you put the ice cream down and then on top of it you poured like... there was like, rather than hot fudge sundae, it was like crushed up Oreos. Like actually crushed up and stuff like that. And we were happy at the salad. And by this stage, like you're rolling us out the door. But there's this crazy thing that's going on. It's the flashiest place I've ever been in my entire life, like bar none. There's this crazy thing going on. Here's this dude. He's a bit bogany, like he's a bit like us. He might come down sometime. Okay, he's a bit like me. He might come down sometime this year, and you'll hear him and stuff. He's just a really ordinary sounding guy. Like doesn't preach amazingly well, but just does something amazing. But the same guy who's just sort of, he'll shout you this feed at the Marriott, which I don't even know how much it cost. Like it would have probably been, I don't know. Like I actually don't know. And this crazy thing's happening. There's millionaires all around us. Like actual dinky-die millionaires. Like we know this for a fact because they're all wearing clothes that we've never seen before. Like the clothes are so awesome they don't even have to have a thing on it because they're supposed to be instantly recognizable by the cut of the clothing. Does that make sense? These guys, these millionaires come up to him, and it happened like 5 or 6 times during the hour. Hour and a half that he was with us. He hadn't had sleep for like 36 hours. He was hanging out with us. That was what he wanted to do with his hour off. These millionaires are coming up to him and just handing him checks. And it would go something like that, man, I'm such a fan of what you do. I absolutely love everything you do. This is just a little something. Give me a call about what else I can do for you. It happened like 6 times. Because we counted, because it's like, we want to know what's on the check. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it was a man who was walking in favour, the favour of men. But actually it was someone who came with humility, like if you talk to him, he's just really, really normal and stuff like that. Now, we might not be able to do it on that level, but actually the exact same idea on the first day that we were at Frogs. The first day that we were at Frogs, the air conditioning bust. It was broke. And so imagine like 1,000 people lining up for an elevator. I'm not lying, there was 1,000 people lining up for an elevator. One of the Frogs jobs, literally like what we did for 4 hours straight, was push the buttons for the elevator to try and make it go slightly faster. So rather than the hour and a half long wait, they waited for an hour and 25 minutes and hopefully they wouldn't kill anyone. But it's hot, man. It's so hot. The air conditioning's bust and it's like 40 degrees. And so like people like fainting, you'd swap seats over and stuff like that. It was real crazy. We're going, well, what could we do to help this? We're going, ice blocks are really cheap in Australia. Like they're ridiculously cheap. It's like $3 for 30. And so we got 150 ice blocks, which was like a drop in the bucket. But we gave out these ice blocks for no other reason than it was really hot, and what would we like? We gave out ice blocks, and like we actually gave ice blocks to 2 towers with that 150, 200 ice blocks. We talked about it afterwards going, how the heck did that happen? We gave them to 2 towers. Like we couldn't run out of them in the first tower. We went to the second one that wasn't even our tower. We gave them out ice blocks. They never mentioned, like not one person the entire time mentioned the ice blocks the whole rest of the week, including rooms that we went into. Rooms that I remember giving people ice blocks to. Does that make sense? But, man, you should have seen how many times we got requested. Not the ice block guys. Oh man, we want the international Frogs team. We want the international guys. See, because sowing one thing and not expecting anything in return gives you so much favor in other areas that you just don't even understand it. Another time, that's the same hotel. Another time we gave the security guards water because they were just filling up their bottles out of the tap, the toilet tap. Like, yummy. We gave them that. One of the security guards literally cried. Like actually, and he was a hard nose. He cried. The female security guard said nothing. But we started getting invited to all kinds of stuff. Like invited, hey, we've got this situation, can you help us? We only gave them water for no reason at all. We just wanted to give them water because we didn't want them to die because they looked after us when it got hairy. We just wanted them to be there. But actually that sowed favour. They started putting the fireman's lift on us for the service because we'd wait up to an hour for a lift, and We gave coffee to this guy that wasn't even at the hotel that we were at. He just wanted a coffee, and so we went out. He even gave us money for the coffee, and we just gave it back and went, "No, it's all good." And we started getting invited into that hotel as well. The security guard would just wave us on in. "Hey, how's it going?" There's two responses to generosity. Okay, why am I talking about generosity? Because generosity and favour are found in the wild together. And I'm going to finish up. I'm going to cut everything. There's two responses to generosity. There's gratitude or there's indebtedness. Remember me telling you about the patronage? You get to the phase, take favours, take favours, take favours, and then it would get to the stage where you either became a slave or you became someone who walked in the favour of your patron. Gratitude is not the same as indebtedness. See, both emotions occur following help. Indebtedness occurs when a person perceives that they are under an obligation to make some repayment or compensation for the aid. The emotions lead to different actions. Indebtedness can motivate the recipient of the aid or the generosity to avoid the person who's helped them. You owe me. Whereas gratitude can motivate the recipient to seek out their benefactor and to improve their relationship with them. I've got all kinds of stuff here about lies and stuff, but I'll just finish up. One of the things that I felt real strongly to talk about tonight was that the phrase "I don't take charity" is a really dangerous one. I don't take charity. It's a really dangerous one. Because remember, charity comes from the same root word as grace and favour. So the base word for grace and favour is the same one as charity. When you say "I don't take charity," what you're saying or what you're speaking over yourself is, I can't position myself to receive favour from God or man. It assumes the lie that if we aren't independent, we are weak. It's positioning us, what we need to do instead is, it's positioning ourselves to not receive blessing. I might talk about the lies another night. I've got all kinds of lies. It's really interesting. We don't earn or deserve it. We don't need it. Lies we receive about favour, we don't need it. We don't earn or deserve it. So what I've got here is maybe it's time for some of us to move from the grace zone to the favour zone. If you want favour with God and men, you'll have to prepare yourself to receive it from God. Once you receive favour, it's in your care. The Lord gives as his children can receive. There's this great, if anyone wants to hear any more about it, Danny Silk does an awesome message on it called Following Your Favour. It's essentially follow where the God leads you, because where you walk in favour is probably somewhere where God wants you to be. But it says here, it's either Danny Silk or Bill Johnson. I can't remember who it is because I listened to the same message in the same day and wrote it down on the same day, and my note-taking system is not quite as good as I thought it was. So I know it's from Bethel. I know it's the Bethel podcast. I don't know which one. This is it. When God gives you extraordinary favour, it is for the sake of those around you. As your favour increases, so must your attitude of gratitude. Otherwise, the sense of entitlement will strip you of your character. Not strip you of your favour, strip you of your character. Our attitude to God's favour has to be gratitude. Otherwise, we'll fall into the entitlement or indebtedness trap. I now owe God. God saved me, so I now owe God. Or the other side of the scale, which is, I don't know, God owed me anyway. I'm entitled to this. God owed me anyway. I'm going to cut all that out. All right. You have the potential. Release into this world what you have, and whatever you have, you'll release into the world. Whether it's good, you'll release it. Whether it's bad, you'll release it. And it applies to favour as well. We don't have to hold on to our favour like it's a handkerchief that we need to protect at all costs. Smash the first person that tries and takes our favour from us, when we're supposed to just be giving it away anyway. I'm going to cut a whole heap of stuff. Can I get the musos up? Got here, God's favour is not a good luck charm. That's why we don't win lotto when we buy a lotto ticket. I don't know, has anyone ever tried that? I've totally done that before. Anyone else? Totally done it. Just me? You guys, I love you guys. Yeah. Buying a lotto ticket, or enter a competition with the knowledge that God will bless you with winning that competition. Oh, I found it. Lotto ticket, no. Win the competition, yes. The secret, oh, I've totally done that. It's interesting where God's favour will take you. It's interesting where gaining the favour of men will take you. Because you'll gain the favour of men where they're at. Because that's all they can give you. So if you gain the favour of men in prison, you'll gain favour within that prison, which from the outside probably looks not very much like a blessing. Joseph was in prison and got favour from the prison. Stephen Furtick, who's this great guy from California, Cam actually put me onto his podcasts because he quite liked them, and I hated them because it challenged me, so I like them now. Stephen Furtick says, remember, for Mother Mary, being blessed and highly favoured meant giving birth in a barn and bearing public shame and ridicule. Joseph having favour meant that he got beaten, abused, he got favour in prison, he got so much favour in his master's house that the wife came onto him. Favour for Joseph meant being forgotten in a prison for 2 years. He had favour there, but he was still forgotten. Walking in favour requires you to exert more faith, because it's going to take you to places that you've never been and require to do things you've never done. Things you can't do apart from Jesus. When you ask for God's favour, he answers with opportunity. As he sees the opportunity, he empowers you with his presence, and then he equips you with his power. That's not my thought, that's Stephen Furtick's thought, just by the way. It sounded really good, but that's because it wasn't from me. So, this is my last thought, and then we're gonna finish up, okay? Honour and favour are tied together. They're found in the wild together, and one indicator is usually a sign of the other. They appear together all the time, to the point that it often looks like they're almost the same thing. But there's a whole heap of stuff that's tied to favour that looks like that as well. Favour and blessing. Favour and grace. Favour and generosity. Favour and integrity. Favour, kindness and love. So here's the altar call. It's just so it didn't sneak up on you. There's three kinds of people. There's three types of people that I want to come to. That I want, like, if you need God's favour in your life, come down. That wasn't one of them, but there you go. I believe that for some of us tonight, just as you have your eyes closed, if you don't, that's okay. You can look at me, that's fine. Someone tell me if I fall off the stage. I'll probably know. When I was preparing the part of this message, there's sort of three types of people. But I really felt God was wanting you to come down and just, I don't know, get released, I guess. And the first one is the slaves. You've been highly favored by God. You've been walking in grace for ages and stuff like that. But you're in the boat where you think that you are now a slave to God. You now owe God everything. No, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in the sense that if that's tying you up so much that you're actually bound up in the fact that I have to do this, then you're a slave. If it doesn't cause you pain to think about it, you're fine. God, I want to give you everything, and it doesn't cause you pain, you're sweet. God, I have to give you everything, and it causes you pain. It might be time to come down and have some prayer. The second lot of people was actually the people who've been living in the grace zone for a really long time, and just been disappointed probably because you've been thinking, oh, is that all there is? Is that all there is to this God thing? That he's got grace for me to look after my worries and look after my immediate dangers, but not enough to favour me. See, because if that's you, you're probably believing a lie. You're believing a lie that your Father wouldn't meet your needs. And the third lot of people was actually, it could be you. It was, you've been chasing after the wrong group's favour. And it'll come out like two sorts of things. Basically, you've been chasing after position so hard that you've lost the function that was the cause of your passion in the first place. Or you've been trying to please the crowd so much that you've actually lost eyes on what was supposed to be on your agenda the whole time. Holy Spirit, I thank you so much, Lord. I thank you so much that you've blessed us with grace and that we get to walk in your favor. Lord, I thank you so much that we get to release that favor over other people. I thank you so much that as we grow closer to you, that it would come to a point where we couldn't run out even if we tried. Holy Spirit, move amongst the people now.